It is 6 p.m. here in Cairo. I am Ahmed Nader, and for the news bulletin for today, I'm honored to be joined by my dear colleague, Lubna Yahya. Hello.
Hello, Ahmed.
Hi.
We're going to be starting off right away with the headline.
Israeli occupation army strikes in the southern Gaza Strip city of Khan Yunis killed at least 38 people overnight in a fresh massacre against the civilian Palestinians. Many of the casualties from the Israeli strikes on houses in El Manara area in the city were women and children. As the Israeli war of aggression moves into the second year, the death toll in Gaza is approaching 43,000, with the densely populated enclave in ruins.
In the north of the enclave, Israeli strikes on 3 houses in the town of Bethlehem killed 25 people and wounded dozens others. Meanwhile, the Israeli forces launched a raid on Kamal Adwan Hospital, terrorizing the injured and children there. As part of an offensive that began on October 6th, medics said a delegation from the World Health Organization evacuated 40 patients before Israeli tanks opened fire on the hospital, striking its oxygen stores, raiding the building, and ordering staff and patients to leave. The hospital is one of 3 medical facilities that have been struggling to operate in northern Gaza in spite of the Israeli offensive that left at least 800 Palestinians killed in 3 weeks.
United Nations agencies said that the children in Gaza are dying in pain for want of emergency treatment as a result of the Israeli authorities approving fewer and fewer of them for the medical evacuation following the closure of the Rafah crossing. Almost 300 children were being evacuated a month. That number had now declined to less than 1 per day, with the authorities waiting in vain for security approvals from the Israeli authorities controlling exits from Gaza. Israeli authorities did not say when an application for a medical evacuation had been declined, and no explanation was given for any decision taken.
An Egyptian official source said that a high-ranking Egyptian security delegation reviewed with leaders of Hamas group in Cairo the current situation in the Gaza Strip, a means to overcome obstacles that face reaching a truce agreement in the Strip. The source said the meeting came within the framework of the Egyptians' efforts exerted to resume ceasefire negotiations in Gaza. The source also asserted Egypt's commitment to continuing the entry of the humanitarian and relief aid to the people of the Gaza Strip.
Lebanon accused Israel of targeting journalists in a deliberate attack that killed 3 media workers in the country's south. 5 journalists have been killed in previous Israeli strikes. The Lebanese health minister also said that the Israeli strikes killed more than 160 rescuers and health workers in a year of military escalations, calling it a war crime. The details follow.
Lebanon said an Israeli airstrike killed 3 journalists on Friday in an attack on the country's south that the Minister of Information branded as a war crime. Lebanese television channels said a cameraman and broadcast engineer were killed in the strike targeting a journalist's resistance in Hasbiya, South Lebanon. The channel said that the previous Israeli strike had hit an office it had vacated in Beirut. Another TV outlet, which is run by Lebanese resistance group Hezbollah, said its photographer was also killed in the Israeli strike in Hasbiya. According to Lebanon's health ministry, the strike also wounded 3 other people. Israel has been at war with Hezbollah in Lebanon since last month. Hezbollah began low-intensity strikes on Israel in support of its Palestinian ally Hamas, followed by the 7th of October 2023 attack on Israel, the deadliest in its history. After nearly a year of war in Gaza sparkled by the attack, Israel expanded its focus to Lebanon and last month launched a massive bombing campaign targeting mainly Hezbollah strongholds across the country, sending in-ground troops on September the 3rd. According to Lebanese health ministry, the war in Lebanon had killed at least 1,580 people. Israel's military on Friday said it had struck more than 200 militant targets in Lebanon over the past day.
Lebanon's state news agency, meanwhile, said an Israeli airstrike in northeast Lebanon has closed another border crossing with neighboring Syria. The airstrike on the outskirts of the village of Al-Qa brings the number of border crossings between the two countries that have been struck by Israeli occupation army to 3. That leaves 3 functioning border crossings.
The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon said that the peacekeepers withdrew from an observation post near the town in South Lebanon on Tuesday after the Israeli forces fired at it. The mission said in a separate statement that a medical facility at a UNIFIL base in Beit Leaf was hit on Wednesday by a shell or rocket of unknown origin, causing damage to the buildings. Later, 2 shells or rockets also of unknown origin impacted near a UNIFIL position in Kafr Shoba, causing damage to living accommodations and shelters. Peacekeepers in both positions were in shelters at the time.
The Israeli military said that 5 soldiers were killed in fighting in southern Lebanon. The fresh death comes after a day after the occupation announced the deaths of also other 5. Also, Hezbollah said it had fired more rockets into Israel, targeting a military base in South Haifa.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that there was a real sense of urgency in getting to a diplomatic resolution to end the conflict in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah, while calling for the protection of the civilians. Speaking across from him before a bilateral meeting in London, Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi told Blinken that there was ethnic cleansing going on in northern Gaza, where the Israeli forces have intensified the military campaign in recent weeks. The top U.S. diplomat is in Britain, meeting Arab counterparts following the tour of the Middle East this week.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia plans to deploy North Korean troops to the battlefield starting October 27th and the 28th, citing intelligence reports. Zelensky did not say which frontline sector North Korean soldiers are expected to be sent to or give any other details. Ukrainian military intelligence said that the first North Korean units had already been recorded in Russia's Kursk border region, where the Ukrainian military has been operating since staging a major incursion in August.
And Cyclone Dana tore the roofs off homes and flattened trees and power lines after making landfall on the Indian east coast, but did not appear to have caused significant casualties. Cyclones, the equivalent of hurricanes in North Atlantic or typhoons in the northwestern Pacific, are irregular and deadly menace in the northern Indian Ocean. At least 1.1 million people in the states of Odisha and West Bengal were relocated to storm shelters before the eye of the cyclone reached the coast just after midnight.
Moving forward to the world of finance and business, Minister of Finance Ahmed Kujuk said that the state seeks to simplify and facilitate tax measures in line with supporting the plan of transforming the economy into a competitive one based on production and export, and also in line with attracting foreign investors. He added that the state seeks to ease the tax burden and expand the tax base, and will also offer simplified procedures and clear tax calculations. The minister's remarks were made in his meeting with representatives of the financial institutions and banks giants on the sidelines of the IMF and World Bank annual meetings underway in Washington. In the attendance of Minister of Planning, Economic Development and International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat.
Oil prices are set for a weekly advance amid simmering risks to the output from the conflict in the Middle East. Brent crude futures added 0.24% to $74.56 a barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was up 0.23% to $70.36. Oil, which had fallen on a large buildup in the U.S. crude stocks yesterday, recouped some of the losses starting from early sessions for today.
Moving forward to the exciting world of sports, Al Ahly secured their 15th Egyptian Super Cup title after defeating Al Zamalek 7-6 on penalties following a goalless draw in the match held in the UAE capital Abu Dhabi. The scoreless match led to the Giants to a penalty shootout where Al Ahly finally won the title after Omar Geber sent his shot into the crossbar. With this result, Al Ahly added a 15th title to its Egyptian Super Cup trophy collection.
And this brings us to the end of the news bulletin for today. Thank you, Lubna.
Thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a good evening.